Good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you here tonight as we dedicate this Performing Arts Center in honor of a great educator, mentor, and friend, Dr. John F. McEwan. I would like to recognize in attendance this evening Representatives Jeff Deal and Josh Cutler, School Committee Chairman Robert Hayes, and present and past school committee members, Superintendent Dr. Ruth Gilbert Whitner, and other notable district and building administrators. I thank you for attending this evening's dedication. I would also like to recognize and thank John's family, his children, Chris, Heather, and Julie, along with their families, and his beloved wife, Margaret, for honoring us all by being here tonight. The Performing Arts Center serves as a place to applaud and recognize academic excellence, student achievement, and to celebrate the unique talents of every student as they perform on this very stage, in a place where the community comes together and celebrates education. So it is only fitting that tonight and forever going forward, we celebrate and honor the accomplishments of this great man by dedicating this area as the Dr. John F. McEwan Performing Arts Center. I would like to begin this evening's ceremony with a performance by the Whitman Hanson Band and Chorus, led by Don Legg and Devin Dondero, performing Richard Rodgers in concert. Thank you. How about one more round of applause for a great job? If I know John, he's looking down, and I know he enjoyed that performance very much. At this time, I'd like to invite Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Ruth Gilbert Whitner.
Thank you all for being here this evening for this very special event, the dedication of the Whitman Hanson Performing Arts Center to Dr. John F. McEwan. When I was thinking about my comments for this evening, I asked myself, what would John McEwan do? And the answer came to me. He would wear the ears. Hope I have it on. For each one of us who knew John, we knew of his love of all things Disney, and we knew that his love was profound. He loved that mouse and all that went with him. Our leadership team read about the Magic Kingdom. He wore the mouse ears on many special occasions and named the first floor corridor here at the high school Main Street, after Main Street USA at Disney World. When a family trip was coming up to Disney, his excitement was second to none. However, John's enthusiasm for performing arts extended far beyond Disney. Shortly after John and I began working together in 2002, we found that not only did we share very similar values for educating each and every student, we also shared a love of the theater, which included a common passion for Broadway musicals. That's why we had this evening. It was wonderful. Some of you may recall that shortly after Wicked opened in Broadway, we began the school year by defying gravity, and the picture's actually back there. I saw it just a few minutes ago, with John in the lead. It was like no other school opening I've ever seen. In one of the last conversations I had with John, we both talked about how much we had enjoyed Boston American Repertory Theater's production of Pippin. This spring, I had the pleasure of attending the Drama Club's excellent production of The Jungle Book, right here in the Performing Arts Center. As I watched the show, I kept thinking, John would have loved this. This is just what he wanted for this Performing Arts Center. While he can no longer watch the shows with us in person, I could feel his presence Maybe it came from the back row in the balcony, or behind the curtain, or backstage, or in the seat right next to me. But he was there. Since this high school opened in 2005, this Performing Arts Center has become a special place for the school system and the communities of Whitman and Hanson. Student and adult concerts, dramatic performances, recitals, kindergarten registration, parent meetings, community evening school graduation, last November's statewide student council conference. The list goes on and on. The dedication of this Performing Arts Center to John F. McEwan is truly a celebration of John's life and the demonstration of his powerful commitment to education, to students, and to the performing arts. His philosophy that the performing arts are an intrinsic component of a high-quality education is evident to all of us this evening, for it is in this very place that dreams really do come true. The Walt Disney Company tells us, if you can dream it, you can do it. Always remember this whole thing started with a dream and a mouse. As we dedicate this wonderful Performing Arts Center to John F. McEwan, the physical embodiment of his vision for this amazing building, my version for this evening is this: if you can dream it, you can do it. Always remember this whole thing started with a dream and a very special man, Dr. John F. McEwan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Whitner. And now I'd like to invite Mr. Scott Dunlap from AI3 Architects here, who worked very hard with John and shared the vision of this beautiful building. Mr. Dunlap.
Thank you very much. It's before the screen comes down, I'll just say it's a privilege to have the opportunity to speak here tonight. John was a wonderful friend of mine. We had the opportunity to work together for many, many years on many other projects beyond the Whitman Hanson Regional High School. And he was, in a world that has so few leaders, he was an incredible leader and an incredible visionary. And as an architect, it makes your work very easy to work with someone who has such a conviction to achieve and to constantly be raising the bar. And it's a real pleasure tonight to chat a little bit about John. I'd first like to dispel maybe one mystery and one myth with regard to John. And I meant to check with Margaret tonight to see if it was okay, but she was really busy beforehand, so I'm just going to assume that I have her permission to do so. And the first, I think I'll start with the mystery, actually. John always made me feel inadequate in that he was constantly doing things, achieving, doing, creating, thinking. And every single day working with him was exhausting, but you just couldn't wait for the very next day to begin. And I remember feeling like I couldn't imagine how he could do so much in so little time. And finally one day he shared with me his secret, and I don't think anybody other than maybe the close family of John would realize this. But I'm going to, if it's okay with Margaret, I'm going to go ahead and reveal this tonight. John finally called me into his office, and he didn't want to talk about it in his office. So we actually, this was after the high school was finished, we actually went up to the roof of the building, and John allowed me to capture a never-before-seen photograph, never before until tonight. And I just want to show you what his secret was. It's so secret that I'm not going to show it. I've changed my mind. There were 5 of John. He really did, it really did seem like sometimes there were 5 of John, as much as we were trying to accomplish. And just quickly, because I want to get to, John the visionary, John the leader, one of the myths about the design of this building. As we were presenting the design of this building, we had historic photos of other architectural buildings in the towns of both Whitman and Hanson and the old shoe factories, and examples of the architectural aesthetics from those buildings and how we carried those into the design of the exterior facade for the Whitman Hanson building. And tonight, I have to confess, that was a cover story. It's not really with the inspiration for this building at all. What actually happened was John called me into his office on yet another day, and he handed me a sketch and a photo. And I think that if you look very closely, you'll see in the next slide the similarities that were drawn between the two. I mean, you look at the tower there, you look at the tower. The secret's out now on the design inspiration. I want to talk a little bit about John the leader, because the very first time that I met John was when the school committee had just asked architects to come down. This is in 2001, had just asked architects to come down and consider how the towns of Whitman and Hanson might potentially resolve the educational and facility problems that existed at the high school, the educational deficiencies in terms of space, et cetera. And on that day, we were invited to tour the old Whitman Hanson Regional High School, and John was not part of that tour at all. And as we were led around the building as a group of architects from all different architectural firms all over the Commonwealth, we were told how for 30 years in the towns of Whitman and Hanson, various proposals to expand, renovate, build new educational facilities had been defeated. And as we walked around the building, we were all told that we would be working with the existing building and that in some cases there would be some renovation, but the building as it existed was probably appropriate and was probably the right fit for a project in Whitman and Hanson. And I can remember wrapping up that tour of the old modular classrooms and some of the interior spaces in the existing high school and being very depressed at the end of the tour and thinking, you know what, I don't think this is going to be our bag here. And it just so happened, and I think life many times does come down to split-second encounters, but as I walked out to my truck to leave that day, John was walking out of his office, and his car was parked just a couple of cars over. And as John would do, he immediately walked over. He saw a stranger. He wanted to make sure I wasn't troubled at first, but then after that, he immediately engaged me and told me that he'd recently taken the position as superintendent, and that he proceeded to describe to me that he had a very different vision for what the towns of Whitman and Hanson wanted and needed and would support. And he explained to me the pride in both of the towns. He explained to me the educational opportunities that both of the towns recognized that they needed to provide for future generations of their children and their children's children. And he motivated me to believe in him and his ability to convince everyone that his vision was the right vision. And so we did, in fact, ultimately pursue the project, and we did, in fact, ultimately begin to work with the towns of Whitman and Hanson. And I think that it's hard to imagine, but I genuinely believe that had it not been for John's vision, the facility we see today, not just this auditorium, which is an amazing space, but the entire facility would not be here as you know it today. And as everybody knows, a year later, after the facility assessment was done, and the building committee and John spent a year, reaching out to the towns and explaining the need and explaining the vision and explaining the dream. Both towns supported in May of 2002 the concept of designing and building a new regional high school. And it was not just a regional high school. It ultimately became the first model high school ever selected in the history of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It ultimately became the first green school in the history of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. As of this day, it's the most toured and visited public school facility in all of New England, toured by educators and engineers all over the world. And it's currently been replicated in 10 other towns, which is something that even John couldn't have imagined as we were going through this process. So quite an accomplishment for both the towns, all a result of his vision. At the time in 2002, some suggested that the existing cafeteria and dining area was the right place to be and the right kind of space for the students. John had a very different vision for that. In 2002, to the next slide, some would have suggested that the science labs in the 1959 facility were okay with a little painting and some new furniture. John had a very different vision of that. He understood that technology would ultimately become directly infused into the science lab and would become one of the most valuable tools for learning. Now, that model is essentially replicated all over the Commonwealth and all over the country. Some would have suggested that the old gymnasium, with its limited capacity and limited opportunities for competition and recreation and practice and for the community, would have been okay. John certainly had a very different vision for that, where multiple groups could come together and parents and grandparents could stand on a balcony and overlook and see their children and their grandchildren play in a community facility where everybody could come together. And you only have to drive by the facility on the weekend to see that his vision is coming true. Some would suggested that the old corridors with some new lockers and some new paint were okay. John had a completely different vision of what educational space should look like. Library Media Center. Certainly the old overcrowded, undersized Library Media Center could have been the Library Media Center that existed today, but John had a very different vision for that. An amazing vision, by the way. And now to the auditorium, where John took a particular interest in every small detail as he understood that the space that would be created perhaps might have the most impact of all on the students and the communities and the administration. So as we toured the old facility and we're told that there might be some new seats, there might be some new paint, and I didn't darken these photos, by the way. It really was that dark. The lighting was very poor, for those of you who may recall. Some new seats, some new paint might be okay. John certainly had a very different vision. As we see the facility today, understand that there was no stone left unturned as we went through the design of this facility. Everything from the surface of the stage to the pilasters you see, to the palladium, to the arches, to the columns, to the acoustical clouds and their orientation. John wanted it to be perfect because he understood that this could be a very, very magical space. And he understood that it would be an opportunity to dream, it would be an opportunity to believe, it would be an opportunity to inspire for many generations to come, and he wanted absolutely everything to be perfect. And literally on this space, it did seem like we were working day and night, as every single day he had a different idea, he had a different question, he had a different concept that he wanted to incorporate into this design. And it was, I tell people all the time, it was one of the craziest times in my career. It was also the best time in my career because it was so inspiring to see him get up every day and want to focus on the detail of this building and specifically of this space. So it occurred to me as I was looking at the photos and rethinking those times that it's a unique dedication tonight and of this space in that generally a space is dedicated to someone that perhaps had nothing to do with that specific space. And in this case, John led every detail of this space for a reason. And so it's not just about dedicating a space to a person who was a great leader and a great visionary, but it's about understanding what John wanted for this space. And it's about, I imagine that if 20 years from now somebody is asking, who's this Dr. John F. McEwan? That rather than recite to that person what he achieved or accomplished or all of the things that he did in his life, I know that John would want to explain to that person that what he did was create a space where people could dream, a space where people could believe, a place where goals could be achieved, a place where people could be inspired. And he would want, most of all, that they understood that that was about all the late nights, all the long days, all the planning and design. So today, as I was trying to just kind of put a phrase on it, I ended up with one relatively simple phrase, and that is that, on the next slide, that if everyone who enters this space be transformed to a place where they can dream beyond their imagination, believe in the impossible, and inspire all of those around them, as this is exactly what John intended for this space. So I hope that 20 years from now, a year from now, 30 years from now, everyone will remember that John invested so much in this community, in this facility, and specifically in this space so that everybody could be impacted, and I know that he will. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And just as I listened to that, what was so amazing about John was he was always willing to share his vision with others, and I was certainly the recipient of that as I had the pleasure of chairing the building committee in one of these model school projects in my hometown of East Bridgewater, where we just completed our building project, and John was very helpful, and as to many of you out there in the audience, I'm sure, was a great mentor for me in going through that process and how to get people to get out and vote and to see that same vision and what could be accomplished and what a great community center that the school became. So not only did he want that for the people of Whitman and Hanson, but he also wanted that for all kids in every community, and I think that's a testament to John. At this time, I would like to invite another performance from On Stage Theater, presenting Matilda.
Like Romeo extra strong, keep out of reach of children. Oil of violets hair tonic for men. Yup. In the slip of a bolt, there's a tiny revolt. In the slip of a bolt, there's a tiny revolt. And snap of a wing, and the flap of a wing, the tiniest mite packs the mightiest sting. Every day starts with the tick of a clock. All escapes start with the click of a lock. If you're stuck in your story and want to get out, you don't have to cry, you don't have to shout. 'Cause if you're little, you can do a lot. You mustn't let a little thing like little stop you. If you sit around and let them get on top, you won't change a thing. Just because you find that life's not fair, it doesn't mean that you just have to grin and bear it. If you always take it on the chin and wear it, you might as well be saying you think that it's okay, and that's not right. And if it's not right, you have to put it right. But nobody else is gonna put it right for me. Nobody but me is gonna change my story. Sometimes you have to be a little bit naughty. When I grow up, I will be tall enough to reach the branches that I need to reach to climb the trees you get to climb when you're grown up. And when I grow up, I will be smart enough to answer all the questions that you need to know the answers to before you're grown up. And when I grow up, I will eat sweets every day on the way to work, and I will go to bed late every night.
about one more round of applause for a great performance there? At this time, I'd like to invite Jack Ahern, a longtime friend and colleague of John's, to come up to the microphone.
Good evening. 30 years ago, I was the new principal of Silver Lake Regional High School, and John McEwan was a high school English teacher and drama club advisor at the Lake. With an eye and an interest in an assistant principal's opening at the school's Kingston campus. During that year, John invited me and my wife, Elena, to accompany him and his wife, Margaret, as chaperones on a weekend drama club trip to New York City. I thought the trip would provide my wife and I a wonderful opportunity to get to know the McEwans, not to mention a chance to check John out as an aspiring administrator. On the itinerary for Saturday evening was a Broadway show in Times Square. Everyone enjoyed Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. On our return to our hotel in New Jersey, John met with all the students to remind them of the rules, making it perfectly clear that everyone must be in their rooms with lights out by midnight. It was sometime around 1 a.m. when the phone rang in my room, and on the other end of the line was a not-so-happy Mr. McEwan. His bad news was that as a result of a bed check, he had discovered that 4 girls had left the hotel and taken a taxi back to New York City. The hotel's doorman confirmed the troubling news. I met John in the lobby, and we waited patiently until the girls returned at about 2:30 a.m. I will never forget the look on their faces as they walked through the front door and saw the 2 of us sitting there. Without hesitation, John calmly spoke to each of the girls separately to hear what they had to say and told them that he would be calling their parents and would meet with them again later that morning. Prior to boarding the bus for the trip home, John and I met with the girls to let them know they and their parents would be meeting with their assistant principal on Monday morning to determine the consequences for their actions. All these years later, what I remember most about the unfortunate incident was how straightforward and professional John was in handling the situation, and how bad each of the girls felt because of the great respect and fondness they had for Mr. McEwan, and the fact that they had let him down. Needless to say, I had found a new assistant principal for Silver Lake Regional High School. In the years that followed, as a principal and superintendent, John always showed a keen interest and gave his strong support to all of the school's performing and visual arts programs. He truly was a Renaissance man. As a sports fan, I used to kid John about his lack of interest in the Super Bowl. Quite frankly, his Super Bowl was the Academy Awards. And if you ever wanted to know anything about the nominated films for Best Picture, John was your go-to guy. Over the past year, a number of people have made it a point to let me know that they consider John to be a great man. And although I agree with their assessment, John would be humbled and embarrassed to hear such accolades. However, I think he would be pleased if people thought his leadership had encouraged others to accomplish great things for the benefit of kids. Gaining the support of the citizens of Whitman and Hanson to build this 21st century model facility would be one such example. On John's gravestone, there is an inscription that reads, "The best part of life's journey is who you get to share it with." A big part of John's life's journey was to share with students, family, and friends his love of literature and the performing and visual arts. Therefore, it is only fitting that this magnificent performing arts center be forever known as the Dr. John F. McEwan Performing Arts Center. Let John's legacy and journey continue through the many talented students who will perform here for the decades to come.
Thank you. And all the accomplishments that John had, he would be the first one to tell us that he never did it alone. And probably the most important person, or the most important person by his side every step of the way, was his beloved wife, Margaret. At this time, I'd like to invite Margaret up here to formally accept the dedication of this Performing Arts Center to John and to share her thoughts. Margaret?
For all the time I heard John dream about this school, I never stood on this stage, so it's pretty awe-inspiring. Thank you all for coming tonight. But before I get started, I would like to recognize the family members who could join us. John's brother Ed and his wife Carla, and John's niece Janice, my sisters and their husbands, together with my niece Kate and her family, Dave, David, and Erin. My niece Emily surprised me coming down from Portland, Maine, with her infant son and her little girl Anna. My niece Suzanne and my nephew Ryan. Would I ask you to stand up? They probably wouldn't listen to me, but wave. Also joining us tonight are our daughter Heather and her husband Frank, and our two grandchildren, Zachary and Kara, our son Christopher and Liz, and our daughter Julie and her husband Greg. Would you stand up? No. Also present tonight are some very, very good friends, classmates of ours from high school, and friends of ours from near and far, so I thank you all especially too. Although John was an idealist and at times an incurable optimist, he was always a realist and a planner. When it was time to consider his funeral and burial arrangements, it came as no surprise to me that he'd have an opinion about that. One request he made was that I would have inscribed on his gravestone, "He's not here, he's in a meeting." On this matter, I had the final say. Nevertheless, I do feel John's presence here tonight in this Performing Arts Center. He is humbled and honored by the tribute being paid to him by the Whitman Hanson Regional School District, and he is flattered beyond words by your presence in sharing in this dedication. He may not be physically here, but I can assure you he is at this meeting. My family and close friends know that John gave me a plaque 2 years ago for Christmas that had a sketch of who else but Mickey Mouse and his gang of friends riding in a jalopy. And the inscription is what Jack Ahern just referred to, that's part of his gravestone. The plaque reads, "The best part of life's journey is who we get to share it with." Living with a terminal illness certainly has its challenges. However, one of the blessings is that during your lifetime, people who have crossed your path will tell you about the difference you've made in your life. John and I called this one of the gifts of cancer. Your presence tonight means that in some way, you too have shared in John's jalopy ride of life, and you are among the best parts of his journey. For this, I would personally like to thank each and every one of you for coming to help my family and I celebrate this tribute being paid to John. I'd especially like to thank Dave Fleck for his leadership and perseverance in presenting the idea of dedicating the Performing Arts Center to the school committee. And I would like to thank the members of the school committee for approving it. My gratitude is also extended to Ruth Kerrigan, Bob Rogers, and Siobhan Horton for their help in planning this dedication ceremony. And of course, to Michelle Kelly, who served as John's outstanding administrative assistant and continues to serve Ruth Whitner in that role. It truly has been a pleasure to work with all of you. What would a Performing Arts Center be without a performance tonight? Thank you to Don Legg, Devin Dondero, and the students of Whitman Hanson who performed so well. John would have loved it. In addition, my thanks to Brooke Scriven, who offered to have her students from On Stage Players participate in tonight's program, as a way to give back to John and to the school for the opportunity to be able to perform here. All of us enjoyed the performances, and they demonstrate exactly how John envisioned this Performing Arts Center being used. Not to be overlooked are the parents who brought their children and young adults to entertain us. Thanks go out to Mark Ryan for preparing the refreshments that we'll enjoy at the reception later. The building and maintenance department did a beautiful job of preparing the walls and installing the signage throughout the building. John would say it was very classy. This has been a year of reinvention for me. I've worked hard to look for new ways to rededicate my time and energy. One of the creative activities that I've picked up again is quilting. The Prairie Rose quilt I'm working on now is more complicated than anything I've ever attempted. When it is complete, it'll be large enough to cover a queen-size bed. Although it's not an original idea, as I work on it, I couldn't help but think that each one of us represents a piece of John's quilt of life. Some of us were always part of the background or common blocks. Some helped John design a special project, known in quilting terms as a unique block. And some of us were what quilters call floaters. That helped to compensate for small deviations in measurements, but bind the blocks uniformly together. Whether you knew John from Silver Lake, Cardinal Spellman, or Whitman Hanson, you all embody a component piece or block of John's career quilt of dreams fulfilled. Just as it takes a village to raise a child, it also takes a village to build a career. No one person can do it on his own. There are 3 people I'd like to single out who inspired John's educational career. On behalf of John, I would like to publicly thank Ruth Whitner for returning to Whitman Hanson as the assistant superintendent, and who now serves so capably as the superintendent of schools. John valued her intelligence, her experience, her sensitivity to people, and her friendship. I appreciate her generosity, ongoing support, and leadership in recognizing John's contribution to Whitman Hanson. John and Ruth made a great team, and Ruth continues to do a great job with her team. Many of you have had the opportunity, some would say the challenge, of working with John on a special project that he felt passionate about. In quilting terms, these are the unique blocks. Scott Dunlap, as you heard earlier, was the architect on the dream team that designed this building. Scott and John respected one another for their God-given talents. However, as they collaborated on the design of this school, they both achieved more than either one could have independently. John with Scott's skills to interpret his vision of an effective, efficient, and excellent school. Together with the contribution of the other members of the building committee and the financial support of the 2 towns and the state, the dream became a reality when this school opened in 2005. Thank you, Scott, for your contribution in helping John realize his dreams of designing and building a school, and for honoring us by coming to tonight's program. Some of you had personal friendships with John. The third person I would like to recognize is Jack Ahern, who just spoke. He was one of John's closest friends and colleagues who became an integral part of John's growth as an administrator and leader. If it hadn't been for Jack, John may never have gone into administration or have completed his doctoral program at UMass Amherst. Everyone needs a friend like Jack Ahern in his life. Their styles were different, but their goals were always the same. Do what is in the best interest of kids. Jack, thank you for being there for John, sometimes in the forefront and sometimes in the background, but always reliable. You represent both a unique block and some common blocks in John's quilt of life. John dedicated himself to making a difference in the lives of kids. He strived to achieve high standards of excellence in the performance of his own duties and motivated others by his example to do the same. His advice to the staff was to lead, follow, or get out of the way. During his career, John respected, valued, and recognized staff members who distinguished their service by making extraordinary efforts of efficiency, effectiveness, or excellence to create an improved program or environment in which one student or all students could achieve their full potential. He highly regarded those staff members who would do what is best for kids in carrying out their duties without expectation of additional financial compensation or promotion. My family and I wanted to provide a tribute to the spirit and legacy that John left to the Whitman Hanson Regional School District. Starting in September of 2015, the Dr. John F. McEwan Do What's Best for Kids Award will be presented annually to recognize a staff member or team employed by the district who has demonstrated extraordinary vision, creativity, competence, and execution of his or her job responsibilities. This demonstration of performance will create a new standard of excellence that positively impacts the students of the Whitman Hanson Regional School District. The details of the award are on the Whitman Hanson website, thanks to Mark Stefanski. Tonight we honor John in his work by assuring that all who use this Performing Arts Center will be reminded of one man who only wanted to do what was best for kids. At the same time, he wanted the residents of Whitman and Hanson to see this entire building as a reflection of the two towns coming together to demonstrate their pride and their commitment to the prosperity of future generations. I want to sincerely thank you on behalf of John and my family for joining us in the dedication of this Performing Arts Center. His legacy lives on in each and every one of us as we recall a story or a lesson he taught us on our jalopy ride with him about living life to the fullest and respecting all we meet along the way. The completed quilt of John McEwan's life is that he lived life fully, with joy and no regrets. He died at peace with everyone he knew, a very happy and fulfilled man. All who come to Whitman Hanson's Performing Arts Center will know his name, but all of us present here tonight are among the lucky ones to have personally known him. In the epitaph I had inscribed on John's gravestone is, "In life, love and do good. In death, there are no regrets. In memory, love lives on." The best tribute that we can make to John is to carry on his legacy by making a difference in the lives of those we encounter. This evening can be summed up by paraphrasing the lyrics from one of John's favorite musicals, Wicked. Because we knew him, we have been changed for good. Thank you.
I once again would like to thank everyone for attending tonight's ceremony, invite everybody into our student dining hall for refreshments, and I think we'll all be sharing some John stories while we nibble on some of those nice treats in there from Mark Ryan and the culinary and our food services department. And again, just a thank you to all those that Margaret mentioned in helping put tonight's ceremony on and all the logistical stuff behind the scenes. And thank you to technology for ensuring all the different moving parts of tonight work seamlessly. Again, I thank everybody for attending, and I invite you to exit over here to my right and join us in the student dining hall for some refreshments. Thank you.